UConn put the rest of the college basketball world on notice on Saturday night with a road win at Marquette because, as our coach told us a long time ago, it's coming.
Get us now. That's all. You better get us now.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all of your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering the UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. To show that gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. Guess what? It's Super Bowl week. It's here. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers can bet just $5. And if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Let's hear that again.
That's all. You better get us now.
That is a rallying cry for this team, not only for what transpired a few years back, but getting Liam McNeeley back. I think most of us went into the game on Saturday thinking there's no way they win this game. I was one of them. I said in my Husky walks that I did, and I'll do a couple more of those this week, I said, this game is going to be close. If you're betting plus 6.5, whatever it was, good bet. Because there's games, there's no game this year that UConn has been really outclassed other than the Dayton game. And I think that was just about fatigue and frustration. They've had some really tough games where they've lost to Creighton at home, on the road to Xavier, where their games they had chances to really kind of put teams away, and they didn't. Villanova could come back to bite them in terms of seeding. But I think everyone went into this game with, we'll see what happens. If a bunch of things happen well, then obviously we have a chance. But no one saw, I don't care how much of a diehard fan you are, no one went into that game and said, oh, yeah, that's going to be a double-digit win, which essentially it was. I know they only won by 8, but, they dominated throughout that entire game. And, who was the biggest issue in that game is turnovers. And the 25 turnovers is not something that you're going to see again with a UConn team winning by almost double digits. So, solo ball really put the Big East on notice as he was named Big East Player of the Week. 25 points, 10 rebounds, just an absolute dominant performance. The crazy thing about it is he made 7 straight threes. I think that's one thing that's kind of like lost in the shuffle here is he missed his first 2 shots. And then after that, it was dead high all day. So 7 straight threes to end his performance. He only missed 2 other shots. He was 7-11 from the field. Didn't miss a free throw, 10 rebounds. Good God. How many people have been asking for their guards to get in rebound? So I was like, okay, I got you. 11 rebounds last game, 10 rebounds this game. He's really announced himself. Every time Marquette made a push, he responded. He made big-time shots. He rebounded. He defended. Look, he's not exactly where they want him to be on the defensive side, but he's made huge strides. And to think, in the media availability, when Dan said, we're teetering, we're kind of like, in that spot without Liam where they really didn't know what they were going to get in this game. This win has to be, if not the most satisfying win in Dan Hurley's regular season career, it's got to be in the top 3. I don't think you can pinpoint another game that maybe is more satisfying. Maybe beating Villanova the first time after getting beat by them pretty soundly when coming back to the new Big East as they were kind of in their golden era, if you will. But this one's got to feel real good Really good. I'm surprised that Marquette didn't have answers for Solo, because I do feel like Shaka Smart is a really good coach, and they just didn't make adjustments. As poorly as other players outside of him and Jalen shot the ball, you'd have thought they would have wanted to try to run him off the 3-point line with whatever switches. Even if they had to give away like little slips to the basket, like at some point when a guy makes 7 in a row after the third or fourth one, especially at the times that they happened, I mean, they were backbreakers. They cut it to 6. Nope, it's 9. That's the thing, man. Like, that's what was surprising to me. I mean, I loved it. Please keep giving Solo open looks. But that's the thing, is they weren't all open looks. He made a lot of that happen off the dribble. He made a lot of that happen with contested shots. There's probably an argument that could be made that he was fouled on 2 or 3 of those threes as well. And it's not just about his shooting. I mean, he was everywhere. So what does this win mean for UConn? It is, first off, it's a win over a top 10 road game. Some of which is gonna look impressive to the people that actually matter, not the pundits that, these are my power rankings, or these are my, the whatever engagement farming company decides to put out there. This is my top 25. Well, your top 25 doesn't matter. Not even a little bit. You may have, more clout, but the fact of the matter is we deal in facts in this world, and at least we try to. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know how far UConn is going to rise in the top 25. I don't care about that either. I care more about the metrics. So let's take a quick look at those numbers. All right, let's get into these numbers. Not a huge change. So I'm waiting to see what happens with the AP poll, like I said, but that doesn't matter as much. The net rankings went up from, they were 38, now they're up to 32. Ken Palm was 36, now they're up to 34. Offensive efficiency went up from 15 to the 11th. You would imagine so, after shooting 63% and 60% from 3. Pardon me, 63% from 3 and 60% from overall. Defensive efficiency went down. Like, we actually, we're back up towards the better marks. We were in the 130s. I think 134 has been our worst. We're now at 115, holding a very good Marquette team to under 70 points. And then if you talk about our friend Evan Miyakawa, he came out with something called resume rankings, which is kind of what he wants to do away with the quadrant system, where, if UConn that was a quad 1 win, versus if they were to lose to Seton Hall, that's a quad 4 loss. It'd be terrible, right? So those are like the gamuts of the Big East. It's very interesting. And according to his metrics, and listen, all metrics is it's predictive analytics, and that doesn't mean that the predictions are always going to come true. It is a point of reference, if you will, right? So before we get into his resume rankings, because it's not going to look good for UConn right now, and granted, there's still a lot of games to be played. So, like, if we were to just go on his website, which I was just on, they have in his team ratings, UConn is 25th overall in his team ratings, which is kind of where they are in the AP poll right now, and they'll probably move up after the new rankings come out. So Solo Ball has really moved up in his charts. He was something like a negative 2.3 in his Bayesian ratings in the defensive side. Now he's at minus 0.34, so he's really made some good strides. He's their second best offensive player, according to the metrics, but we all know he's their best player when we really kind of watch it with our eyes in terms of scoring. I think the interesting part about the resume stuff that he wants to kind of make uniform, and there's a case for it, is UConn just beat what in his metrics a 1 or a 2 seed in Marquette. They are his 6th resume rank overall, so like somewhere in the 1 versus 2 seed category. St. John's, we played this Friday, where I'll be in the building for that. Can't wait. Is 12 overall in his resume ranks, and they're somewhere between a 3 and a 5 seed. Creighton, who we lost a close one to, and we have some revenge on our minds next time we go check them out. In Omaha is 26th, and we're 34th. So 6 to 8 seed for Creighton, somewhere in the 8 to 10 seed for UConn right now. I don't think anybody listening to this believes that what they saw from UConn just beating a 2 seed or a 1 seed, as of right now, if the tournament started today, believes that this UConn team currently constituted is anywhere close to a 9 or a 10 seed. if you put us at a 9 or a 10 seed, we're going to ruin someone's bracket. If they're stupid enough to do that and stubborn enough because the Big East is down, quote unquote, to show the defending national champions and back-to-back defending national champions that kind of disrespect would be doing so at your peril. I think Solo's emergence means this team just unlocked a absolute new weapon in the Solo surge. Liam McNeeley is on his way back. He will be playing on Friday. I'm not making that as an announcement of fact. I'm telling you that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm sure they will announce that later this week. Dan dropped hints of that, saying, I'm sure we're going to be a lot healthier coming this Friday, including even Haas getting some much-needed rest this week. So we're going to talk about what Liam's return and the Solo surge will mean for this UConn team come Friday against St. John's and really the rest of the upcoming season. You're locked on. We'll be back. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, Pat Mahomes, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on all the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to final whistle. I've been betting features that let you stay involved with live betting, and this way it's no matter what happens on the field, you can kind of adjust based off of what's happening. So that's the beautiful thing about live bets. I actually really enjoy them. So also knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. I said this on the women's show earlier this morning. If you're watching this and you have a FanDuel account or you have another app that you use, take advantage of these bonus bets. I'm going to. We got a week. I got a week to see if my wife will do this. If we can bet $5, win the bonus bets as a new customer, then you can just use those $200 in bonus bets during the Super Bowl as a couple, just to kind of like sit there and do live betting. What do you think is going to happen here? And it's just, they're bonus bets. It's free. So you could actually win some pretty big money. And then who knows, that could be for a honeymoon or a new down payment for a car, whatever. Even if it's just like a couple $100, night out, whatever it is, just this is your advice from a happily married man. I think that would make the Super Bowl more enjoyable to watch. Even though my wife is a big football fan, so she probably will be into it. So check that out. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, what does this all mean? All these, what it comes down to is this. The brass tacks of it is this: Liam McNeeley changes UConn's ceiling. Solo Ball becoming a 20-plus point scorer changes UConn's trajectory. There's no other way to say it. There's no other cheat code. There's no other kind of, well, if this and this happen. No, these two things will automatically elevate UConn to the higher levels of college basketball. Top 10 level basketball. Where they thought they were going to be to start the season is where they can be with this type of production. And you don't need Liam. Why this win on the road was so important is because now going into Friday's game, you don't have to think of this as a must win. Is it a want to win? Is it a win that feels like if they get it, that they're automatically going to start feeling really good about themselves, back to back, essentially, maybe even top 10 wins, because St. John's could pop into the top 10 after their win, and then a bunch of teams losing. And I think there was 11 teams in the top 25 that lost, the most in AP history. What does that tell you about the AP rankings? They don't matter because every teams are going to lose. And especially the teams in the SEC, the Big Ten, these teams are cannibalizing themselves. So all of these are domino effects. From Hassan having a week to get healthy, from Liam having another week to get prepared for the St. John's game, to Solo having a week to be like, you know what? That was pretty good. The job's not finished. If you have this situation, you have someone like Solo, or pardon me, let's circle back to Hassan. Gets healthy. He's not supposed to be a primary facilitator all the time. Not for 38 minutes. That's never been his game. with Solo providing some ball handling and then McNeeley coming back, Diarra's workload is going to shift away, and that allows him to play at a higher level on the defensive side. That's a huge deal. The majority of Cam Jones's buckets in that Marquette game was on the diminished Hassan Diarra. The minute Jaden Ross got on him, most of those buckets went away. And then there's Alex Karaban. For weeks, we've been talking about how he's had to deal with a little ankle tweak, so much defensive attention, being treated as a number one option. Now, he's essentially the third option. If you think about it, I think that's what makes him truly elite, is a guy who is, you're going to watch the Super Bowl, right? There are two guys on this team, on these games, on the Kansas City side and then on the Philadelphia side, I'm going to have you watch, because this is what reminds me of Alex Karaban. I wrote this on my Substack, that he reminds me of a tight end or a slot receiver that the quarterback can always count on to come up with a big catch, or to kind of slide into an area where instead of kind of running the route and kind of going and getting himself killed, he settles down in his zone and gets a pass that only Pat Mahomes or Jalen Hurts can throw to, right? So those two guys are Travis Kelce, and I hate to say it, Dallas Goedert. Those two tight ends are always open when it's a big, crucial point in the game. And so that's Alex. That's Alex in this UConn offense when it's fully healthy. He has the ability to score. He has the ability to make passes. He has the ability to make these slips where he screens and then cuts out on set pieces. So the backdoor screens that kind of have him opened up to kind of slips to the basket and great cuts. These are the things that Alex Karaban is going to do. And I'm okay with him shooting a bunch because he's earned it. And if he starts to get more comfortable where he's not getting all of that attention, where someone's guarding him like this, then 1,000% he's going to be more effective. Then you have Jalen Stewart. Absolutely deserves a ton of credit for how this game started against Marquette, making those 3 threes. It's like almost like he is the where there's like what are those things, like a fire starter, like for a one of those gas tanks that, or a fire pit, where you kind of hit the button 3 or 4 times and it goes poof. That's Jalen Stewart. Like in certain points in games, that's what he is. He's a fire starter. And it just so happened that in the Marquette game, it was the beginning. So those 3 threes kind of set the tone, and then it was off to the races. He also did a great job a little bit in kind of pick and pop, where I love that he feels comfortable to shoot when someone is closing out on him, because there's a lot of guys that don't get a ton of run that would shy away from those threes, and he really continued to prove that he's okay with taking big time shots and making them. And then let's get back to Jaden Ross. I talked to him about him a little bit in his defense on Cam Jones and others. He's never going to be a pure shooter. Sometimes he'll make some threes, sometimes he won't. But his athleticism and his defensive ability are exactly what this team wants. They're screaming for a two-way player. He may not be a two-way player just yet, but the combination of him and Jay Stewart, if Stewie can be the offensive side of the two-way player and Jay Ross can be the defensive side of the two-way player, they'll live with that until Ross gets up to the offensive side and vice versa. Because I think Jay Stu is more capable defensively than Jay Ross is offensively right now, and that could change. With McNeeley coming back, you're going to see lineups with Solo Ball, Diarra, and a combination of Ross. You're going to see a combination of Jay Ross, Liam, Karaban, either Samson, Johnson, or Terrace Reed, or a mixture of Jay Stu, Liam, Alex, and then Solo, Diarra, things of that nature. So if I've talked about this, if they want to get really creative, they could go to like a really speed lineup or a death lineup with Alex at the 5, and then a myriad of shooters down the line, depending on how big the other team is. I don't think you'll see that against St. John's with Ojefor on their team, and they're just a physical, tough team. So they're going to need a guy like Samson, you're going to need a guy like Terrace. Samson Johnson didn't miss a shot against Marquette, played phenomenal defense, didn't foul. Terrace Reed, again, didn't foul. And what I'm going to say is also, I said this on the live show on Saturday, go to the basket, UConn, because that's where the fouls happen. You're not getting fouls on the ball. You're not getting fouls on the freedom of movement. We got to get to the basket so that they back off you a little bit, because then those set pieces are going to look a lot better, because you're going to get more open looks, because then they can't grab you, because on the odd chance they do call that, you're at the free throw line. So that's the biggest thing. This team isn't just deep, it's versatile. And with McNeely's return, UConn can dictate matchups rather than just reacting to them. And that's what I love about Liam's return. And he doesn't have to be the answer. That's what's so beautiful about this. Solo has freed him up. Solo's emergence has essentially freed up Liam to do whatever is needed. Is he going to be the point forward? Cool. Is he going to come off the screens like Liam, like Solo does? Maybe when Solo's taking a break? Cool. Things of that nature are what's going to make this team so much better. And I hope he plays, 15, 16 minutes, nothing crazy. And this team still has a really good shot of being St. John's. I don't necessarily know if there'll be a minutes restriction with the week to kind of get him prepared for this. We'll see. I think Dan truly feels everyone's effective when they play around low 20s and high 20s to the high volume players. So we'll see what happens from there. We're going to come back and talk to you one last time before we end this show. I think it's coming, part 2. I'll play this again. This is obviously a snippet of Dan Hurley's "It's Coming" from the Villanova game, post game.
People better get us now. That's all. You better get us now.
And I say that, he says that, and I reiterate it because he stood in that press conference after a tough Villanova loss, and he had the cojones to tell people that, look, you don't know this, but I know what I have in the guys that I'm bringing in. And he brought in those guys from the 2023 team to the 2024 team to now going into 2025 with the McDonald's All-Americans he's bringing in. This is not just about this season. This is about the rest of next year too. Because what this stretch has also done is provided a shot in the arm for any of those clowns that thought UConn's going to lose a bunch of guys in the portal because they don't like playing for Dan Hurley and blah, 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 blah. Nothing could be further from the truth. This team is locked in. They just shot 60% from the field and 63% against a top 10 opponent without their top 15 lottery pick in Liam McNeeley. What's going to happen when he's back? We just talked about it. The absolute domino effect is going to take place because, like we said, they just learned how to win a game on the road without him. Now you insert him, and it's just like business as usual. What I want to caution, not the UConn fans, be as excited as you want, because I'm super pumped. If you bet against this team, be prepared to lose your money. And as I said in a pregame show or preseason show with Isaac Shade of Locked On College Basketball, if UConn, do not let UConn get to a Final Four. And I'm going to also, but at the flip side of that, I'm going to caution UConn fans for this before I close the show. The only way UConn isn't going to get to a Final Four is if this NCAA tournament committee tries to do what they did last year, which is put UConn, they're going to put UConn in the death bracket. Whether it's the East, whether it's the South, Midwest, the West, whatever it is. I only can make one prediction for you is it's stupid that they wouldn't want UConn to make this run, which I believe is true. Because it'd be the best story for college basketball for Dan Hurley to be front and center with all of the, acrimony of people just like, oh, he's such a whiner. He's not self-aware. He does this, he does that. The biggest story in college basketball this year is not Cooper Flag. It's not John A. Broome and Auburn being really good. It's not the SEC getting 13 teams in the NCAA tournament. It's not the Big Ten in Purdue being pretty good this year without Zach Edey. It's Dan freaking Hurley. That's who your number one story is. So if they're smart, the way they were smart when Duke was the biggest story in college basketball, whether they were good or not, Duke would get a pretty light bracket in areas where they could have fans to kind of help push them along. Because what happens when a Duke team loses? I was in the stands for a Duke first round loss as a 2 seed against a 15 seed Lehigh. and one of the biggest upsets in tournament history because they're playing in Greensboro, which is an hour away from Duke's campus. And that place was littered with a sea of blue. And they lost. But what happens in a game like that when your team starts to lose in a non-Greensboro place in that time, it wasn't as electric because, there's were there other teams there? Were there Duke haters there because you're not far from Carolina? Absolutely. But it would have been tenfold if they're playing in like Spokane or they're playing in New Jersey or someplace where, the outside Duke fan outside Duke hater can kind of come in and really kind of get after it. So if they're smart, if the NCAA tournament is smart, they'll put UConn in a favorable bracket because you want UConn in the Final Four, even if they're like a 6 seed or a 5 seed or a 4 seed, and they're the underdog in that. Please bring it on, because as Dan Hurley has said time and time again,
People better get us now. That's all. You better get us now.
Because it's coming. And if you don't get us now, we're going to win another national championship. And we're probably going to be considered a favorite for the national title again next year with who we have coming in. And if you don't think Dan Hurley and his boys are going after some big-time talent in the portal, you don't know Dan, and you don't know ball. So that's been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto. I will see you Friday in stores. Super excited about that. Stay locked on. Stay connected. Make sure those toughest meters are always rising. And as always, go Huskies.